Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Water, Land, and Ways and Means. This afternoon, we're going to hear from DLNR, who will present their supplemental budget request. Good afternoon.
All right. Oh, hello, Mike Calco. Good afternoon, Senator De La Cruz, Chair De La Cruz, Inoy, and Vice Chair Elefante, and members of the committee. My name is Don Shang. I am the Chair of the Board of Land and Natural Resources, as well as the Commissioner of Water Resource Management. I'd like to introduce, we have First Deputy Laura Ka'akua. I also have Acting Deputy Dina Bueno. Also seated at the table, I have Cynthia Gomez, who is our Fiscal Management Officer, Cardi Chang, Chief Engineer, and Alice Shudi, our Personnel Administrator. I also would like to introduce our administrators for our various divisions. When I call their name, I will ask them to stand. Les Kobata, he is a IU Homeless Coordinator. Also present today is Michael Ho PE. These are agents. These are agencies that are administratively attached to DLNR. So I have Mike Naho'opi'i with the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission. Unfortunately, Leimana Damate, Executive Director of Ahamoku, is not present, but I do have Auntie Rocky Kaluhiva. She is the Ho'o of the Ahamoku Council, and John Komeji, who is the Chair of the Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight Authority. I do understand that the committee is ready for us to go immediately into our budget.
Yeah.
And so we are prepared to discuss table 6. You have referred us to that. Okay, so shall we go over line by line, or are you okay? So the first one is
Add 3, right?
right. It's to add 3 positions to Climate Commission. I have Leah Laramie is with our Climate Commission, but these are for specific positions to provide them the capacity to service the Climate Commission. We have applied for we got a $3 million EPA grant last year. We're using that, which will position us to go for a larger grant with EPA. Next item is a special fund ceiling. This is for this is for land division special fund. The next one is
to pay for fringe.
Yes, for fringe. The next one is LNR 101. Again, it is also for land division. It is $900,000 to upgrade our public land trust information system, PLTIS. Next one is LNR 02. It is a special fund ceiling, and this is for.
Okay, yeah. So those 3 we can just group.
Okay.
Those
Okay,
for
so
the
the next
fringe. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one is LNR 172. Is
Yeah.
that the one? Okay.
Yeah.
And this is for a federal fund ceiling adjustment, $5 million.
And that's
Division of Forestry and Wildlife.
okay. And that's so that you
To
can
match federal funds, yes. Similarly, LNR 172, again, Division of Forestry and Wildlife. It is funding, it's the $7.5 million to sorry.
It's a federal fund.
Yeah. Well, no, this
No,
one is
A5.
actually to support
This is A5.
management, alien species. So this includes like invasive
Coconut.
species, the HIS program. It's also for fencing, but it's to protect our watersheds. LNR 401,
You have a breakdown of the 7.5.
7.5, that is,
You don't have to give it to me.
Okay,
You can
yeah.
send it. over.
We do. We can provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next one is LNR 401. This is Division of Aquatic Resources, similar federal fund ceiling increase. And to provide us matching federal funds. LNR 401, Division of Aquatic Resources. Again, it's to provide full year funding for 3 positions. Okay. LNR 401, Division of Aquatic Resources, recently it's to increase our sports fish special fund ceiling. Sorry. It's to increase that ceiling for projected increased revenue. Similar to that is LNR 401. It is, again, it's to increase the Ocean Stewardship Special Fund. We are anticipating revenue. We just passed of administrative rules to establish that. So this is to help us to support the program. LNR 401, this is special fund ceiling for fringe benefits, 21,000. The next item is LNR 402, Division of Forestry and Wildlife, federal fund ceiling adjustment, and to match anticipated federal funds. LNR 402, federal fund adjustments, again, it is to match federal funds. Similarly, LNR 402, Division of Forestry and Wildlife, this is specifically the $7.4 million for fire suppression, protection of watersheds, as well as wildfire protection. LNR 402, Division of Forestry and Wildlife. Similarly, $10 million is primarily for equipment. Much of our equipment is outdated, so it is to provide DOFA the resources to building capacity for. Sorry, that was the first one.
Oh, okay.
7.425 million.
Yes.
And then the next one is the 10 million.
Okay. You guys have a breakdown of that too?
We do.
Okay, if you can just provide that.
Okay, we will provide that. Thank you. The next item is LNR 402, Division of Forestry and Wildlife. This is specifically for statewide invasives, the ant lab. It is to provide 500,000 specifically for the ant lab. LNR,
Is the only one in your budget for HISC for invasive?
No, they had 2
You
earlier
have
no,
ones.
David, we have other funds.
No, earlier you
Yeah,
mentioned.
that was,
You
that
have
was,
some already.
yeah, that was LNR 402, the $7.4 million, also helped to cover invasive species.
Are you coordinating with Department of Ag on your invasive species research or elimination?
We are, and we recognize we probably have to do a better job in implementing the biosecurity plan, Department of Ag, Department of Health,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
DLNR.
coordinating.
Yeah, so we are coordinating, but many of these, in order to protect our watershed, we're going out there and doing what needs to be done. So like the little fire ants, coconut rhinoceros beetle, even axis deer. So wherever there's invasive species, we are trying to respond as quickly as possible. And so, yes, but we are trying to coordinate
I
with the
think at
department.
some point, we probably need a briefing as to how it's all organized and integrated
Yeah.
so that.
And that's fair. I was talking to Kathy Ho with Department of Health yesterday to do exactly that. The 3 agencies need to get together on how we're implementing the biosecurity plan.
Including the UH as
Yeah. So the next item is 404, and that is CWAM, Commission on Water Resource Management. Again, it's
Fringe.
fringe, right? The next item is LNR 405. This is DoCare. So expenditure of ceiling to aid in Maui recovery. The next item is LNR 407. This is Division of Forestry and Wildlife, specifically our NARS and Watershed Management Program. It is, again, a federal fund ceiling adjustment. The next item is LNR 801. This is the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation. Request fund for unfunded positions.
So
Next-
those
yeah.
were defunded during COVID.
Yes,
Okay,
so we want to restore those funding.
okay.
Next item, LNR 808, request this, excuse me, 801. Again, Division Dobar, request a ceiling increase to procure trucks and trailers for 4 boating district branches. Trying to build that capacity. Next item, LNR 801, requesting a ceiling increase to procure 2 vessels. This is again for Dobar, to procure 2 vessels for Maui and Hawaii districts to replace the older vessels. Next item is LNR 801, special fund ceiling increase for fringe benefits. Next item is 801, 802. This is for Historic Preservation Division. It is a federal fund ceiling adjustments that we are anticipating for federal grants. Next item is 802, LNR 802, special fund ceiling increase for fringe benefits. Next item is LNR 804. This is Division of Forestry and Wildlife, specifically Forest and Outdoor Recreation, the Na'alahele program. Special fund ceiling increase for fringe benefits. And then the LNR 806. This is for state parks. It is, we began implementing for vehicles, and so this is a second phase, second year of that 5-year plan. LNR 80810. This is a special fund ceiling increase for engineering. It is to cover the fringe benefits. And then the last item is LNR 906, which is administration and a special fund ceiling increase for fringe benefits.
Members, any questions?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll go into some questions. Let's have Shifty up here first. Thank you. And specifically, Chair,
Yes,
the comments I have is couple of years, the money committees has been very kind to Shifty because of the lack of creating and making sure that your vacancies are filled, but without the resources. I have a request, and actually it's actually the complaint on 5 of the positions we gave for the archaeologists. Interesting is because the positions, I believe at that time, and more so it's going to be important this year to fill it because we're into housing, which is a priority of the governor. Now, the complaint was that there were several of the 5 employees have not received the raises. Despite being told by the administration anyway, that they will receive the equal compensation to the staff counterparts. The same employee also said they are being paid $25,000 in salary, less than others in the same position, and that they are making less than the individual they are supervising. However, it's really interesting because we passed Act 203, and that was the creation mandating this year that equal pay between the employees who perform similar work. And the 5 positions, though they are federally funded, they are continuously told by you folks, so the administration, that the paperwork will not be accepted through the fiscal office, despite the funds that we had provided and you can use now. So what's happening? And I think at that time when we talked about helping the agency, and you got big support from all of us and our committee as well, and I as the chair, to make sure that we continue to do the work that the archaeologists are entitled to, and actually by law, with the creation of that, your agency, that they provide the work necessary so we can have things moving along. So can you explain, because the budget, we included it in the budget, so. And this is actually not looking at new hires, they're already there. And we don't want to lose them because, you know, Doc, as you told us, we want to be in competition with the private sector. And we provided the necessary funds to that as well, and even higher.
So I'm gonna let Alan, I'm gonna Cynthia, and then Alan can.
Okay.
So, thank you, Senator, for your question. So the 5 positions, I think, are all federally funded.
Right.
The money given by the legislature was A funds. So those went to positions funded by MOFA. So for these 5 positions, we have calculated what we are receiving from the federal government, and based on that money, we can kind of tell if it's sustainable or not. So if we increase their salaries now, we won't be able to sustain the payment year after year. Because the money is limited. The federal funding we get is limited until probably at some point when the federal government increase their funding to us, then we can do it. Because we have been doing our analysis every so often to make sure that, you know, we are not missing anything. So as far as of November, you know, the most recent funding that we got, it's still not enough to sustain the increase.
Is that true for other agencies that are federally funded and in the same position?
Oh, I cannot
Or is it
answer
unique?
that because this is more on the 5 positions which is funded by NPS. I am not familiar with the rest of the other.
It's kind of really interesting because the Act 203, you know, talks about 3788 HRS 2-3, and that has to do with discrimination. And it has to do with equal pay. And so the governor signed it, and we had the attorney generals in on this, and nobody told us that, you know, we can't give them a raise. I mean, we're trying to save bodies and do the work of the state. And yet be caught in something like this.
So, I think, Alan, if you want to add anything more to that, I mean, these are,
So are we saying that the federal dollars, the funds that we get from the federal agencies are not enough?
yes, that's what we were saying. It's not enough to cover the,
Do you have the total amount? I think the increase, we raised $100,000 per archaeologist to compete with the private sector. So what's the amount that you have that's somewhere, I guess, because you're not expending it?
We are expending it because the money is being used
Part of
for
it.
their salary. So whatever we receive are like used for just the salary of those positions. So
That's why they're being paid less according to,
yeah,
those 5.
so I can give you a worksheet
Okay.
to show you how much deficit or you know, under funded they are at this point. Yeah.
and I understand, Senator, it does, you're right, it is unfortunate. People are in the same office, but state employees are getting paid for the first time more than the federal employees. But the federal funded, they are dictated by whatever funds are allocated. So until we have the opportunity to request an increase in those federal funds, we are unable to confirm that they will be able to get the same pay raises as the state employees.
that's so unfortunate. I guess we got some work to do with our
No, you're right.
congressional
You're right.
delegation then.
Yes,
So Senator,
Because, you know, we're talking again, you know, the administration, the governor is saying, you know, we're into housing, and I don't think that, and you can correct me, Doc, with the proclamation doesn't preclude exempting, I think, the archaeologists work that needs to be done. So, and we're trying to save their jobs. I hate to see, you know, the private sector who would probably pick them up as well, but we're obligated as a state, and that's part of our laws and regulations in the permitting system.
To start with, I do want to thank the Senate, particularly WAM and Waterland, for the support we've gotten over the years. It's been critical. Those increased salaries have made a huge difference both in recruitment and retention. I do think there's a real risk that we will start to lose some of these federally funded positions if we can't find a resolution to it. And you're absolutely right. We are still we're still trying to catch up in the housing, the West Maui situation. I mean, those are crises that, we're struggling to cope with.
So I don't know what the answer is, other than we need to work with our federal funders to increase the allocation that they're giving us, because it's not like we can take it out of our state funds.
It would make a difference then if we increase our allocation then and provide more resources. Would that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, so Senator, these positions are 100% federally funded. So maybe at this point, we can include something like, partly funded by general and we can do the numbers and give that to you and,
Okay, with the numbers that were prepared when we put in the increase at that time, a couple of years ago, can you give us the amounts?
yes.
And I think we're talking about 5, yeah?
Yes, 5 positions.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate.
Well, actually, there are 6 positions
6?
funded by federal, but then the 6th position is vacant at this time.
Okay.
Senator,
Yes, yes,
my comments, I don't begrudge what you're trying to do. However, I think we need to kick it up to a higher level to see if we're jeopardizing future funds or, even if we're able to do this, because maybe talking directly to our federal
our congressional
delegates,
Yeah,
that they should recognize the difference between salaries between the mainland and Hawaii, because
exactly.
our cost of living is high, and maybe with that they can help us bump it. But I do understand the situation.
Yeah,
I just don't want us to jeopardize all other job salaries. Yeah.
exactly. And, just to give you an example, they're not only, they're doing their work in all industries. As an example, DOE. We gave funds for my little elementary school in Kilo, Ha'ahio School, the smallest, I think, in the plantation schools, complete a new building. Guess what? We found Evie. So the work has stopped. And then they moved into other areas and found more. So those students are now relocated to Kalanianaole in Pepekio. And I'm kind of glad that Hilo is a 10-minute town because it was just minutes away. But they, that's the kind of work that they're doing, not only housing, but all the other issues that's relating to our lands. Okay.
I would tell you, Senator, we greatly appreciate
Get the information to us, and what we'll do is, I'll work on a resolution that the Senate can do to send a message to our congressional delegation as well.
I also would like, part of at the department, there is the disparity. The legislature was very generous to helping SHPD be much more competitive. But I've got 900 other employees that we're trying to get them up to parity too, so that they can be more competitive and we can retain them. So we will, working with the congressional delegates is, we can look into that as well.
You can get the amounts to us as well. Yes, Senator Favela.
How much of the federal positions that they have that we can slowly integrate to state civil service jobs? Right, you're saying the counterparts in the state getting paid more than the federal archaeologists. How much of that positions that we can slowly integrate it to a state position?
5 of them.
No, all 5 of them can be integrated to the state from federal?
Well, they're all, the 5 federally funded positions there are only 5 federally funded positions. I'm sorry, 6, 1 is vacant.
Right.
So, yeah.
But out of the 5, how much can actually slowly move into the state side instead of, if the federal money don't come in, like Senator Kadani said, is gonna be, we're different than anybody else in the world. I mean, we gotta, we let other people besides our congressional know they're federal wise because we depend on these kinds of work because of our EVs and how important it is to protect our kupuna and our families. So, you know, maybe the other delegates from around the states don't know, but you know, we gotta help our delegates up there. But how much of these positions can we merge slowly into the state position? That's what I want.
We currently have, we are establishing 12 positions. Is it 12? So we are reorganizing to establish 12 more positions that they could move over. But at the same time, we don't want to lose the federal.
No, I'm not saying that, but I mean, we get the 5 guys that have been putting in the work, right? They're not getting paid, right? We might lose them because of the pay. So if you get 12, move them over, bring somebody else in on that 6 positions that you guys have. I mean,
That's a
that's,
good strategy. I mean, let us look into that.
Yeah.
Whether that's a possibility, but you're right. We
because
don't
you
wanna-
figure how they gonna feel now. They've been there for a few years. You open up 12 positions and they're not gonna be the person on the totem pole who get the
Oh,
job.
no, we
You think they
feel
don't
bad.
wanna stay?
You're right. We feel very bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard when you work in the same office and there's
Yes.
disparity. So I do appreciate the Senate's
Okay.
concerns about that.
Thank
but
you,
we'll
Chair.
look into that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions regarding this particular agency, Shifty? Chair, I'd like to, thank you, Doc. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the Mauna Kea Authority.
All right.
Okay, I know John is here, but I think it has to do with administration more, John. Later on, I'll call you. Yeah, it has to do with the law that you have nothing to do with. The authority is in your agency as an attached, but not administratively.
It is
Okay.
administratively attached.
Yes, okay, but this particular authority is exempt from HRS 26-35, and that's the administrative supervision of all the boards and commissions. So you have nothing to do with overseeing their budget. Yes, you don't have anything to do with what they're doing because you have no control, with the exception that we do have the deputy who is a member of the commission. And I understand that it's a transitioning period going into, I think they got what, 2-3 more years? You had a 5-month period of transition. Currently, the Office of Mauna Kea Management, where the old goes in with the new. For me, I see no problem with the present process. I voted against this bill before, and it's not news. But the current process, Office of Mauna Kea Management under the University of Hawaii, all of their budgets and the oversight of the present management is approved by the Board of Regents. There's an oversight. We provided $12 million last year, another $12 million this year. There's $24 million in their budget without a budget coming out from any of the agencies. You don't oversee that. I have a problem with that because we talk about transparency. So, and it's great for some people, but this authority has no oversight. We're not in control. Okay, if you look at the 26-35, the administrative position of boards and commissions, the financial requirements from state funds of the board or commission shall be submitted through the head of the department and included in the budget for the department. And that you have no control is what I'm saying. So I have problems, and it's unacceptable with a lack of the oversight due to the authority being exempt from this position. And it's creating dilemmas or issues with the authority's effectiveness, perhaps. I'm not sure, but could there be a conflict with the Board of Land and Natural Resources as well? Since the Mauna Kea is under the conservation lands that you know, and the conservation lands jurisdiction rests with the Board of Land and Natural Resources. So with that said, the act that created the authority has no idea or a transfer, who's going to be responsible for the conservation land district? Is it the authority or remains with the board? And what I'm getting into is that this authority or this board, which is in existence now and will be transitioning soon, should be under you, the DLNR and the BLNR, so that there's an oversight. I have no problem because the authority is already created. And so, with that said, have the board or you folks came up with something that would continue to make sure that the BLNR is responsible for the conservation district. Otherwise, I have a bill that I will be introducing to do that, to make sure that the Conservation Lands District of Mauna Kea remain with the BLNR.
Thank you for the question. Let me try to answer it in two different ways. DLNR continues to remain as the authority over conservation lands until that 5-year transition period, and then it will transfer to the authority. So the Board of Land and Natural Resources still has authority over the conservation district, the decommissioning of telescopes, the use of conservation lands. The Board of Land and Natural Resources still has authority. However, with respect to the authority and their budget, I look at it sort of like the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission. Their accountability is to their board. So likewise, the authority, their accountability is to their board that is confirmed by the Senate. So unless the statute is changed, so unless you've changed the statute, I think we look at the law as the authority does have they control their own budget, their own staffing. The board doesn't, but we still have authority over conservation district. Decisions that are made to that still come to the board, but as far as the authority, that is.
What about after the transition period
Yeah, I think after the transition period.
for the Conservation Lands District under the
I
BLNR?
believe that,
That's what's
yeah,
questionable.
under the current, the way that the bill is, that would transfer to the authority.
Okay, all right. Well, we have a
Yeah.
bill that we can talk about it
Okay,
later
okay.
during session as well, and the Attorney General.
Okay.
Because then what happens with you're taking Conservation Lands District from an important area like Mauna Kea, what's happening with the conservation districts and land divisions throughout the state as well? So there could be some issues with regards to that. I'm very concerned. I can see a difference between Kirk and the authority. And there is a difference because of the amount of monies allocated. Kirk has a minimum, I would say. They're always here before us. We got $24 million without oversight. And that really bothers me. And I think there should be a mechanism to do just that. Give it back to you folks. You already have its part of an attachment without the responsibilities. Because let me say, all the members of the authority are not full-time. We got 4 positions coming up, vacancies. And the other 2, and includes John Komeiji, who's the chair, he's going to be gone. So you're going to get, there's no full-time persons there. We got this large sums of money as well. And maybe, John, you can come up and tell us the creation, you fill the position, have you found your building yet? As well as the executive director who you're trying to,
Thank you, Chair.
brief us where you are.
Right, so we finished our last interview for executive director on Friday, this past Friday. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow at our authority meeting, we're going to have a executive session to discuss hiring of the executive
You
director.
had applicants,
Yes, we have applicants.
good.
And we felt satisfied with applicant pool. So there are people there that we think can do the job. We are working through DLNR to get the 4 positions established. The job descriptions have all been approved. up to the governor and kicked back to BLNR.
You
To
found
help
your
us.
place, you found your house, your building?
No, but we're following up on some of the suggestions like Bank of Hawaii.
Yeah.
We're following up with Russell Suji
Okay.
here with the board, but that's why our authority worked through the Christmas holiday. I mean, we worked to like December 23rd, interviewing people because we understand the importance of hiring an executive director. So we're moving through that process very quickly. So I hope to have an executive director either like by February, the beginning
Yeah,
of February.
sorry, I know your goal was at least to try to get a person by December, but
Right,
I
but
guess.
well, part of it is going through getting the job description approved and what have you.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Anyone has the question now?
No,
Senator Favela.
Yes, for the conservation land, was the University of Hawaii had any oversight on any of the conservation lands?
So prior to the establishment of the authority, under the lease,
Yeah,
but all decisions did come back to the landlord. So new construction or decommissioning, they would ultimately come back to the landlord. But the new authority is taking over is working with the University of Hawaii on transition.
thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Chair, I just want to add one question. So John, thank you.
Yes.
When we visited and you,
Senator Moriwaki.
sorry, Kim, and you told us about the transitioning, is there a time frame? And now that you're close to getting an executive director, what is the timeline in terms of the transfer and what are
Right.
the
So
milestones?
we have 4.5 years left to do the transition. The transition actually takes place on July 1st, 2028. So we have 4.5 years. We've started a committee to start drafting a new management plan as required by the statute. So the committee has met and is actually meeting again next week, Tuesday, to further push forward on that. We've established relationships with the University of Hawaii in terms of how we're going to work through the co-management. We've created 2 separate working groups with the University of Hawaii. One, to create an inventory of the assets that need to be transferred over. And so we have a group trying to figure out how we're going to transfer all over the assets. The second working group that we've created is in case there is a dispute fine between the UH and us during this transition period, we've created a working group involving the regents and members of the authority that would, the issue or problem would be thrown into that working group. We could invite DLNR, other members, anybody that we thought would be helpful in solving the problem to solve those problems. So we have all of these working groups, and to give you a time frame, I'm not sure. It took the University of Hawaii, once they start going, 2.5 years maybe to complete their management plan. We hope to do it quicker because my personal goal is to utilize what is there and just identify those issues that people may disagree with on the authority and not start from scratch. So part of that is hopefully speeds up the process. The long pole in the tent is going out into the community and making sure that the community has sufficient input. And that's the part that takes the longest actually in that whole process.
So the governance structure, is that in place or is that in process or how? Because that's kind of important.
Right, so part of the governance structure is in place, right? So we, you know,
Long term for the.
right, so the members of the authority are going to be, to the chair's point, would be responsible for the fiscal, appropriate fiscal spending, right? That the part that's not totally set up is this idea of the organizational structure. So we're bringing in an executive director. We have a position for administrative service officer, but at some point, we're going to have to bring over the 50 some odd people from CMS, and then we have to figure out how to integrate those people. So that part, but part of that is dependent upon who we hire as the executive director so that they can start crafting what they think is an appropriate organizational structure.
John, for those, can you explain what CMS is all about?
Yeah, Center for Monarchy Stewardship currently manages the mountain, led by Dr. Greg Chun. They have 55 employees, people that grade the road, take care of all of the halepohaku and some of the administrative.
Speaking of halepohaku, is that going to be under your authority as
Yes.
well? So that would be the restaurant, the visitor center. What about the buildings
Everything,
that houses the astronomers when they come to visit, the housing accommodations?
everything would be under us. And part of the charge that we have is how do we maybe repurpose some of those buildings for educational purposes to increase the utilization by the local community and local school groups. Because if you look at it historically, the amount of time that people actually spend on the mountain as astronomers has decreased. They can actually sit in their office and utilize the telescopes now. So because of that decreased utilization, there's opportunity to rethink how we use the existing facilities, which are really nice facilities, how we rethink and utilize it. And the big idea right now is how do we use it for education? So we're working with IMI Law that's supposed to help us reimagine, so to speak.
Did you get a cost factor of your like R&M and maintaining that halepohaku with the buildings we talk about, what the expenditures is right now? Who's taking over the cost of that? The university or?
That's part of the $12 million that you have appropriated for us. Basically, what we did is to get to the $12 million, we reviewed the budget that CMS, Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship, currently utilizes. There's some big capital projects that they have not been able to do that we would have to come back, like parts of the road.
This body, the state has not contributed any funds for Mauna Kea. Everything was done by the astronomy division. And so now we're going to contribute $12 million alone to this authority annually. But we can't do that because by law, you don't project funding for years to come. So that means that the state is going to pick up all the funds to create this authority.
With all due respect, I don't know that that's totally accurate because the University of Hawaii contributes a lot of
Comes out
funds.
their budget.
Yeah, it comes out of the University of
But
Hawaii.
not most from us.
Right, I agree with that.
Yes.
So the UH budget though, is it state monies or is it like through federal
monies.
monies that come in?
State money.
It's all state
Part.
money, the 12.
And the funds, the federal funds and the astronomy funds.
Sure.
Okay. Senator Favela.
Yeah, so some of, what Senator, Inouye was saying about the astronomers. I'm not sure, do they pay? Because I know they was paying for see the telescope and everything.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be a revenue for the authority to help maintain the buildings and upkeep of the area too? Because you guys are gonna be generating revenue from those facilities?
Currently, they pay for, they have what they call by use kind of charges. So if you stay overnight, you get the observatories get charged. If you eat a meal there, the observatories get charged for the cost of the meal. So currently, there is revenue to help reimburse for those type of costs. And then,
Okay, and so when I come from Canada, Japan, or wherever, and I bring my people, do you guys know what was the cost that the university was charging the astronomers to come and look at the telescope? Because somebody was telling me it's big money.
it's
Just for look for per minute or per hour
right.
in the thousands. So, okay,
So-
can anybody give us an accurate number?
You're talking about the viewing, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the viewing time, what happens is that the University of Hawaii in its current leases gets viewing time itself in exchange, rather than collecting dollars.
yes.
The University of Hawaii gets certain amount of viewing time per telescope that they then make available to their faculty. As part of what you passed as Act 255, you're also requiring that the university, in addition to making time available to faculty, make time available to Hawaii-based students. But so there's not a dollar for dollar,
Yes.
but it's just the viewing, and so you can equate it to the big dollars that you talk about, Toya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair,
Yes.
Dobar also has jurisdiction on Mauna Kea.
No, no, fine.
Dobar. I mean, your, not Dobar, but the security that we have. Docare, sorry, Docare. They presently take care of the activity at the mountain, right?
Yeah. We,
So what's gonna happen to that? Is that, just, thank you. Jason,
Good afternoon, Jason Redula, Enforcement Chief, Docare. That's a good question, Senator. So long as the area up there, the forest reserve, the conservation lands, those kinds of things fall under DLNR's management,
right?
there's no doubt that Docare will have the primary law enforcement responsibility for those areas. To be quite honest with you, I'm not sure what's going to happen
After,
if these things get transferred to the authority. I think we may have to check with the Attorney General as far as what our jurisdiction would look like at that point.
that's another issue that I'm working on as well. And perhaps when we talk about several of the bills that will surface, perhaps we can talk to the Attorney General, have her look at it for the transition. I'm very concerned because the work that Docare has done is over and beyond normally the work that they do, taking care of the homeless or arresting folks at the beaches, beating up our monk seals. But the work that they do, they also address the transportation issues. Somebody's coming down the hill without a four-wheel drive, crashes out into the fields. The only people around there are boys and our girls. And all the other kinds of late night activities that's going on. So that's something that we should work on and address, because without that care, the board does approve a lot of things. And that's the concern I have with the transition on the conservation lands. And all we're talking about is what the conservation lands from the 10,000 feet up Mauka, right? The areas, the 10,000 acres or.
Right, it's all that's under the current use.
Okay, all right.
I want to clarify, so don't hear like the description of when vehicles, they get stuck. A lot of that is being done by the rangers, not necessarily by Docare, but by the rangers.
Yeah.
So.
The rangers and Docare, but
Yeah,
sometimes it's like
you're right.
who's up there first.
right, but
Or
those,
who's around.
the distinction is that the Rangers don't have citing authority.
Yeah.
They don't have
Exactly.
but they are the ones that monitor the brakes and whether or not people are driving safely, that kind of stuff up to them. But they just kind of cite people.
The rangers are not under you. Who's the rangers?
The Rangers are on the CMS and would eventually be
Yeah,
transferred.
The present,
Right.
Mauna Kea management. Okay. Lots of work and discussions.
So, as the authority takes over the Mauna Kea area, isn't that still state land though?
Yes,
Okay, so doesn't the state still have authority with the sheriffs or any kind of law enforcement, that even the law enforcement division that we have?
Yeah.
To oversight and oversee with the Mauna Kea Rangers if they needed assistance with what we are talking about?
right.
And
And
people making nonsense on the mountain or any kind of getting out of hand of the new law
right.
enforcement.
And that's the kind of discussion we want to have with them as we move forward, right? Once we get our executive director and people on
Yes.
board, we want to talk to them about, okay, exactly how can we make this work that works for them and works for
Yeah.
us?
The law enforcement is something that we really want, so
Right.
really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know we have the other agencies that we have questions for,
Okay.
but thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks, Jason. Dobar.
No, yeah,
Aloha, thanks for being here as well. We know how busy all of you are. Yes, Senator Elefante.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question I have is, I noticed that not in your supplemental budget, I believe this might be in Vice Chair Moriwaki's district, but having to do with Kihei and Alawai small boat harbors in terms of the repairs to the piers and small boat ramps. What's the status of that? And then as a follow-up to that, I know last session, Dobar and DLNR were looking at doing a P3 and kind of put hold on that. So what is sort of the mission or strategic direction for Dobar?
Hold us back on that one. But if you could give an update on PK and on K and otherwise.
Sure. So all those projects are currently underway. We open bids tomorrow for the Kehi loading dock. A lot of the delays we find are with permitting, especially when we touch the water. So we trigger all the federal permits. The water system's almost completed at the Hawaii Small Boat Harbor. We'll come in then and repave the area. Kehi Small Boat Harbor, we're going to be repaving that entire facility. It's never been paved before, so it will now. So ongoing projects for those two. Let's see. We
Is
also-
that the total amount that you have for construction? Everything is already set, so you're just executing right
For
now?
those projects, correct. Yes.
Your money have been released.
Yeah, there-
For those projects, yes,
Thankful for
So-
that because,
but no other money's been released recently.
well,
So
the
we're on-
question is to add to projects with our small boat harbor statewide, with the Maui situation, are we going to see releasing of monies allocated for other areas under your jurisdiction on a timely basis? But I think the big question is what next, but I'm happy that at least these projects are moving along.
Yes, we have approximately ongoing design projects, 60 million in projects. Ongoing contracted projects, 33 million right now. So we definitely have a lot of projects out there ongoing. And regarding P3s, I 100% support P3s for all the small boat harbor facilities. That is the way they're managed in the continental US. Most areas, that's the effective way to manage it. Because through the state process, trying to hire people, dealing with unions, procurement, it's very cumbersome when you're running a small business.
Yes, that is as. and as-
Sorry, that's my personal.
He has advocated that consistently. We will be coming with some legislative package on how to run our harbors more efficiently and manage them more efficiently. But we also recognize, P3 is a controversial issue and it sometimes detracts from some of the other work that we wanted to do. So, yes, you have heard Ed Underwood's position about P3 may not necessarily reflect the direction that the department.
Just a question, Chair, because
Yeah.
we've heard from the university that they do have successful P3s in their development, but I think it's what is the plan? And not just that, we want a P3, but what would that entail? And whether parts of it might be a management contract with a harbor versus, a whole take care of everything under and over the water. So if there's a plan, I think, it's easier to deal with.
Fair enough, and I think some kind of the plan is if we do P3, we're not gonna do all lifers.
What? You have to do all flavors.
That's the one we get the most,
But that's a good model.
We're going to do a lot more outreach and engagement before we.
You do have to do engagement.
If it's in her district, you cannot.
Have you come up before the legislature before for a P3 project? You
Yes.
have?
We have.
Oh, okay.
Since our strategic plan in 2019, we've been before the legislature every year since.
So you're gonna
Yeah.
give me something.
Yeah, because it does, it does
Well,
make sense in a sense. Yeah.
Well, the issue
just the
is,
concept,
if you
concept.
have a bill, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let's take it out and hear everyone else and see what's best. Because when you look at the state pretty much was not organized to be a small boat harbor area where throughout the state. So
Not
that's
Doha.
not our mission.
Yeah.
And I know you bounce from
Yeah, transport.
DOT, to you, and I think we want, somebody said, send it to somebody else.
No,
I don't know,
it's not
Kirk, you want it, Kirk, I don't know, so.
Oh, I'll bounce it back to DOT, but I mean, and
Yes, yes.
all kidding aside,
But truthfully, I think we all understand that P3's work.
And I think just the concept, because we're looking at revenues, we can't afford to take care of everything, right? So how do you look at that as a plan?
I mean, Ed has put a lot of thought, there's no doubt P3 does work, we've seen Kiwala Basin.
Yeah.
And they are
It's a
quite,
They
Um,
contracted it
yeah.
out.
but I think
Okay,
it
that's
works for the
ACD.
different constituencies. We have a different group of people that are kicked at Alawai. So we do need to do more outreach to the Alawai voters before we endeavor, but there may be an appropriate time for us to do.
Yep, and we'll have the hearings, then I'll hear you, Bill. Why was it necessary? I heard you have a restaurant. Is there a restaurant or coffee shop at
That's
Alawai?
The food trucks, the ones
Oh,
that
that was on the vacant parcel, yes.
they're
They
renting out.
came forward on a revocable permit, and the reason for that is the lot's vacant. And we're
Okay, so
trying
it's
to,
a food truck. It's not something
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
has.
it's just no
Okay,
temporary,
all right.
temporary.
It's a temporary thing.
yes.
Oh, okay.
So we are trying to do more food trucks.
They take the place of the homeless.
Oh, okay, all
Yes.
right. Okay.
So,
Senator Favela, then we're
getting back
going
to
to another
Alawai.
agency.
I know you guys are gonna do more outreach, with Alawai, but we know the transgressions you guys have, because most of those guys, I don't wanna say it, but they don't wanna follow rules. And, that's the reason why you guys get pushback. But at one point, where we're gonna stand with these guys is that we cannot afford to take care of it. They have their high demands. They want all of these things done, but they don't follow the rules and regulations of the harbor. And you guys know that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on at the Alawai that needs to be taken care of. And that's the reason why Koala Basin is as nice as it is and productive, because they change how they following rules. So you know that we get vessels over there that are not supposed to stay there for years at a time, but they're there. Some of them doing some other kind of business that is not no longer adequate to be doing business in Hawaii. Some of them don't even have the boat running. They get somebody tow them out so they can follow the rules and tow them back in. So those are the things, I mean, I understand the sensitivity of it, but we need to crack down on these kinds of things, because it only burdensome on the taxpayer going forward.
And appreciate that comment, Senator Favela. I will tell you what Ed has been doing over the last several years is the liveaboards. So we're not issuing any new liveaboards or renewal. So we're trying to get that down to attrition. And I think that will make a big difference. Bringing this harbor back to the community. So there's Ed has over the years been trying to address some of those issues. It's the parking that just gets everybody all heated. So we recognize that, but we are trying to do more. Outreach and engaging, so, but I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
One more question for Dobor. Oh, one more question for Dobor.
Yes, Senator,
so-
we're welcome.
So there's a request for 810,000 for fringe increase. Like, how many staff do you have? How that's quite a bit of fringe. So how many employees does that cover? Do you know?
We have 129, I believe, on the books. We have about a 30% vacancy.
And on the vacancy, you are working with HR
Yes, we are.
trying to fill those, especially the harbor agents, harbor masters.
We are doing our best to,
Hope you have applicants.
And so we're actually
Well,
trying. to
that's part of
increase
the problem.
classification, So that we can.
You
pay them more.
reclassify.
yes.
Yes, I mean, we have to attract people by having a higher pay, so it is trying to pay them more. So I think, so, no, and I appreciate the comment, because we recognize we cannot retain good district harbor agents without compensation. Okay, so we are addressing that.
Okay, we'll go then to OCCL, but before,
Thank you.
thanks, Ed. maybe you can answer, Chair, otherwise you can call,
Michael Payne?
yeah. We received, complaints, and pictures from the public regarding, the staff of, commercial equipment being preset on Waikiki Beach. And I believe we had a bill, last year or this year and became Act 227, that became law that prohibited the, commercial equipment presetting on the beaches on Oahu. And so why isn't this law, enforced? Are they the concessionaires that's setting up the, I guess, the equipment? Or is it the hotels?
Yeah.
And I think we certainly, I'm not sure if it's the jurisdiction of enforcement by DoCare or who?
So I think Ed with Dobor will be able to address this.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We are setting
So
up,
not OCCL then?
Correct. We would be land uses that occur
Oh, okay.
more than 30 days.
So what happened?
we're setting up site visits to go down and put them all on notice for the pre-setting because it's going on every day. Part of the issue is staffing just to get down there. Waikiki is probably the most iconic beach, in the state, as well as the Alawai Small Boat Harbor, which is right adjacent to it. And I have not spoken with Chair about this, but it would almost be a good idea to have dedicated enforcement officers that just do that area only. There is so much activity going on down there. I spoke with Chief Erdula about that too, but he would need the bodies to do it. But
I mean, and we have.
And are they concessionaires?
they are, see, it's those agreements where the hotels actually own the beach, but there's a deed. So we are gonna do is go down, put the concessionaires on notice, but we're gonna bring the hotel owners before the Board of Land and Natural Resources.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Any
Yeah,
questions? on-
since Michael, you're there.
Okay.
Yes.
Might as well ask the question. In terms of the table 16 lapse, there's all the Waikiki master plan improvements. So I'm
Correct.
asking you what's happened, because I thought the master plan was in the making for several years, and now the construction part of it says you don't have.
Can you speak?
Oh, so the construction part of it should be following the master plan, but why is it all of this is lapsing with no construction following with all the funds? I think it's about $11 million.
So some of that 11 million was private funds that were authorized, some were CIP funds. We are working on finalizing the final EIS. And we anticipate doing that shortly. Based upon a board briefing, we realized we needed to ask for that to be supplemented to include more modeling, more studies. In terms of the funds, we had started working on a design for a single T-cell groin. The EIS discloses discusses a groin field with 3 T groins and beach nourishment. That initial appropriation was based upon a guess. We think this will cost 12 million. As we moved through the design of a single groin field, I don't know, 20, 30 million. And because there are more complications to building one. So at this point, and if we build a single one, it looks like we would have to then dismantle it if they receive permits to build the other 2. So I don't know what the cost would be, and we weren't comfortable coming to the ledge and saying, I need money for a project. It might be 30 million, it
So
might be
so
50 million.
what was included in the EIS, and do you have to, where are you on the EIS then? Because if you're changing the design, or is it the same design, you just don't know how much it'll cost to construct?
So as we, so how do I put it? As we started working on a more detailed design, because the EIS is a conceptual design, and when we contracted out for a 60% design, it looked like there would be impacts that were not included in the draft EIS. So for example, a single cell, and when I talk about a cell, a single T groin set with an elevated beach, We didn't address questions of access or ADA access. We realized that a single cell would need a backstop, like possibly an 8-foot wall running along the hotels. And these were things we hadn't anticipated when we thought we could do a single cell like at Iroquois Point. Hence, we needed to supplement the EIS.
But I think,
So it's-
Senator, we're still committed to doing the project. We think that we just have to refine the plan so that it's more reflective of what we can actually do. So we intend to come back for reauthorization. So it's not as if we're going to forego the project. I think we just recognize, as Michael said, there's some issues that we had to fully thought out when we did the first. And we've had meetings before the land board, and those land board members have actually done some site visits. So I think we realize we have to do more outreach to reach some kind of consensus on exactly what's the plan for Waikiki. But I think we continue to be committed to working with the Waikiki district.
WAM-WTL, Waikiki Beach Special Improvement District.
Including the beach nourishment.
So when was that? The first time that you folks started to work on this? It was several years ago on the master plan. So why wasn't that identified at the time?
So the master plan covers 4 sectors and numerous projects. So the appropriation that the senator is referring to was for a specific project under that master plan. It was 2 years ago, roughly 2.5 years ago, that right before I started as administrator, the decision was made to ask for funds for one element out of that master plan. So, and we realized maybe half a year ago that the cost of that project that we had grossly underestimated. And
So you have the whole master plan, and can you give us some information as to what your plans are going forward? Just you don't have to do it right now, but you know,
we can
we'll
follow
ask.
up.
yeah, and we have a meeting set up. I think we have 2 meetings in the coming weeks.
Okay,
So I'll be in your office.
okay, great.
All right.
That's even better.
Thank you, Senator Lee, followed by Senator Pavella.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm less familiar with this area. Mostly because I think a lot of local folks don't tend to go down to that particular beach because it's difficult to access. But as I understand it, there was planning that was funded by the legislature a handful of years ago, looking at the whole South Shore. And from a transportation perspective, looking at how you link some of the broken sections, which I know Hawaii Boat Harbor was part of that plan, I think. But for the section that we're talking about now, where I haven't been down there in a little while, but where the path sort of ends and there's no real access once you get past Fort DeRusi over to probably the Halekulani area, I'm guessing.
Yes.
That's the region where we're talking about, right?
That is.
Doing the current project.
Partly correct.
What's the part that I'm not?
Well,
Or-
okay, so
Without getting too much into
yeah,
the
sorry, the EIS covers from Fort DeRusi to the Kapahulu groin. And that's the groin that the kids jump off of the bodyboard. The specific project between would be fronting the Halekulani, and the idea was between the Fort DeRusi and Royal Hawaiian groin. They do beach nourishment.
Right.
So that full project would improve access, lateral access. The funding we have was for a single cell as opposed to the whole field.
Yeah.
And that we found would actually impede access. So we need to reevaluate how we move forward.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up at that very point. Because we're going to spend all the money on, beach nourishment or longevity or whatever it is that ends up being part of the project. If we make sure that that connection is there so that for local residents coming to the area, you can actually get in there and you don't have to essentially be staying at a hotel in order to be able to access the beach or the water easily.
I fully agree. So
And I think that's part of what's been coming out is that the plans that were originally looked at may indeed impede access. So we're revisiting those plans and having more community outreach on that. But yeah.
Just for clarification, Michael, just one more question. Oh, on this, just for clarification, you said the 11 million was not state monies, that there was, so can you
I can
clarify
look up
what
the
is state?
numbers. I never remember what the acronyms mean. Okay, so there was a 3.5 million in trust funds. Private is R, so 3 million in private funds, and then 3.15 million in CIP funds.
So for state
Plus-
funds, state CIP funds, what is the total of the state?
Oh, GO bonds were 3.15 million plus 1.7 million. So
Just, that's it? Of the 11 million, that's
right,
it?
so we were authorized to spend all of the private funds from WAM-WTL and trust funds.
Okay.
So moving forward, when we know the actual cost of the project, well, as Don said, we're committed to moving forward. We just need to reevaluate how we move forward.
Thank you. Sen-
Senator Favela.
Thank you. I get the questions, but anyway, I will talk about, since you're here, about the growings in Iroquois Point. I'll show you the advertisement that when they put the growings in, they told you guys and Army engineers that it was for erosion. That's not true. Right now, the erosion is happening at Puloa Beach Park all the way down to Hawbush from that area that they have. So when they put the growings in, they had an advertisement on Yelp and other places, come to your own Waikiki private lagoons. So they put the growings in there to advertise the extended beach that they made, their own man-made beach. They got the ugly sand from, I don't know, sorry, I think it was from the quarry, busting them up over there in the valley for bringing the sand to Iroquois Point. So it looked like shells. It don't look like sand, but they did it because they wanted to put out their what you call that, those pavilions and whatnot, right? So what I like you guys, what I wanted you guys to do, and this is something that I was working with even at that time with Mike McCartney, at the time that we didn't get anything done. We took pictures and I think we sent it to you guys to, I need you guys to investigate that beach. They keep telling us that it's military and it's not, it falls onto you guys. But we want to know if that growings, so let me get to the Army engineers. So Army Corps of Engineers said, they went over there and they seen this and they don't have nothing about the billing yet. They just said that what was in there for, they looked at the scope. So they told us, this is when I was on the board, when I first got here. If they put in these growings, whoever put it in, we don't know who put them in. Whoever put in the growings, it wasn't put in there for the scope of what they told the Army Corps of Engineers and probably you guys, they're gonna have to remove it. And the reason why I'm saying this right now is because Polo Gun Range, besides the lead and all the controversy stuff that is happening with our Polo Gun Range, their wall is falling. Since the growings went in, you can go look old pictures before the growings and after the growings. It's eroding immediately. That is causing one hazard for the people that are swimming at Polo Beach. We never used to have that much coral. We had more sand, but there's nothing there now. It's mostly coral. And if you go further to Hawbush, only get coral. So I just need you guys, I don't know what division it is, to go look and see what happened. And then another one is, they used to have water drainage outfalls. Now, when it rained in Iroquois Point, it went into the ocean. That's how it was. Because they never have no drainage. The last big heavy rain, maybe about 6 months or so ago, it flooded knee-deep water on the coastline. And then after this pump, I'm gonna talk to the guys. Hey, you know why? They plugged it. The guys who had privatized it for themselves plugged every single drain along the area where they're swimming, so that the dirty water don't go into their swimming area and prevent their rental units, even though they say they don't have. And how to get around the short-term rental units is that they offer you a 1-year lease. When you call it vacation.
Is that our jurisdiction?
Yeah, that's our, yeah, for beach rentals. It falls on vacation rentals. That's why we made the law, no vacation rentals in any zone, and the beach belongs to DLNR. Right? They plugged the hole. I mean, that's contaminating the water and making it unhazard. for the
But we didn't
community.
build the groins.
Huh?
We didn't build the groins.
No, they build it growing, but they're in charge to find out if the thing is actually working on what they're saying it is.
Falling
And if the
apart.
sand
you're
they're
saying.
taking away from the rest of the coastline from Polo Beach Park to Bush. You know, so-
No, Senator, you raised a good point about the groins, and I think it kind of goes to Senator Elefante's question about access. I think what we're finding is the proposed project for Waikiki included actually 3 groins, right?
Correct.
Three-
3 large grinds and then a few supporting grinds.
So I think we're recognizing that perhaps those groins will have broader impact beyond what we looked at in the EIS. So needing more information to address some of the points that you're raising now. So I think that's why Senator Moriwaki, while we're revisiting the whole EIS, that we may not have taken into consideration the impacts to the surrounding areas. Once you put in the groins, it may impact access to that area. So
Oh, okay.
that is correct. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you don't want that I give out a picture previous.
I-
So you guys can go.
So I need, I can go out with our, science staff, because I would like to understand better the impacts downstream.
Okay.
But it's a military project. They didn't ask us, they told us. So I don't always know what our authority is.
Well, they said Hunt put it in though. Said you saying it was military. I don't want to go there, but the Navy told me Hunt. And the Iroquois Point, Capelina said it was Hunt to put it in. So it was not military, it was Hunt when we gave them the property. Yeah, because of the land swap that we did with Congress Senator Inouye. She always has me saying Senator Inouye, but not Congress Senator Inouye made that land swap because of Fort Island.
The senior senator.
Yes, I said that. I
The
said that.
late
I said
senior
that. I
senator.
said- I said that. I told her about to correct that because every time she didn't get that. But yeah, a Fort Island whole reduction of taking that away from Hunt, we owed them $100 million. And Iroquois Point was part of the land swap of the inventory that was supposed to go back to Hawaiian homes. But it would end up going to Hunt to recover the money, and not only Iroquois Point, but Bob's Point. So yeah, so I never like Sam, but I was Hunt Development that put the rocks in, Richard Lee Trucking Company hauled it out. Yeah, but all done on neighborhood park.
Okay,
Thank
all
you,
right,
Chair.
you got you got a host, he can show you around on your next visit.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Let's move on to land division, but maybe Cardi.
Hardy or Russell?
Yeah, whoever, a Kauai irrigation system. Yeah, our land, yeah, whoever takes care of irrigation. Kauai,
Not that hot, normally hot.
I understand, I just recently had a visit at the Kauai East irrigation system, that we have the reservoirs as well, and their system is a healthy system. I was very impressed. However, I understand there's probably a possibility that it could be turned over to ADC. So what's happening?
Ian Hirokawa with DLNR Land Division. Yes, we've had initial discussions with ADC about potentially transferring it over. I think for them though, they still need to do a lot of due diligence, to assess, make sure that the system will, be effective for them as well. And also, I think they'll definitely need some support in terms of helping to operate the system, even though the system is in pretty good shape now.
Yeah, but my understanding that whole region, you got different areas of the irrigation system.
Mhm.
And so is ADC just gonna take a portion of an area of the irrigation? I think,
I don't know what at this point, what they would or are interested in taking.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's really maybe to ask them. I'm not sure how much due diligence they've done yet. I mean, we've offered whatever information we have to them.
okay, so you're not sure if we're only talking about the Wailua system, a reservoir, or the ones on the other end. And reason I ask is, the famous, and I would say, I'm not sure if many of us have been there, but there's a, what's that monks, what do they call it? there's that, the Hindu temple, uses as well on part of the reservoir system on one side. So, but we're talking about ADC's arrangement for the entire reservoir, the east irrigation, or just a certain part?
Well,
You're not sure?
yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think though, in terms of the reservoirs, the only active ones are Wailua and Upper Kapahi, which is a smaller one. I mean, there's Lower Kapahi, but that's essentially derelict and slated to be breached and removed. But there's only really 2 reservoirs at issue in that system that's left. So again, I'm
So
not
if
sure
they
if they
take it over, then it won't be part of, or part of the reservoir system would be under ADC and not DLNR lands.
yeah, we
if
would
they transfer.
transfer it over to,
Oh,
they
okay.
would own it, operate it. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Land division, anybody has questions with regards to any of the issues? And I see Russell here, and I know, I've been, should I say, actually a big supporter of small business in Hilo and industrial areas and month-to-month leases and stuff, but I understand, you may have some bills coming forward to address a lot of the concerns with leases going forward and the kinds of, I guess, your, what you can do legally as well, to address. And for those of you who are just here listening, we have a process that we do have, a month-to-month lease arrangement for businesses. And when terms expire, you know, it goes out to auction. So I'm kind of glad I've been a pin on the land division for many years, but I understand you may be coming up with some things to rectify.
Hoping to get some, we're hoping, Russell CG for land division. We're hoping to submit legislation regarding,
Can you a little bit closer, sorry?
to address,
No shade.
to address the issue about the 30-day revocable permits, and instead of that, perhaps having the ability to issue longer term dispositions directly rather than going through the process of auctions, which can take a long time to prepare.
Okay, so month-to-month leases are not only pretty much on the Hilo side, but throughout the state, you have some month-to-month. That's part of your process.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you don't have the authority to negotiate
At this
like
time.
Department of Ag with ag lands,
Yes.
where they have an opportunity to negotiate instead of going out to auction.
That's correct.
I'm kind of glad that finally, at least we can all look forward to those who want to stay in business as well. So I appreciate that, even if I may have been a thorn on their side. But you know, we need people to stay in business.
Yes.
And so we thank you for hearing it. I know you guys, I saw a whole list of bills. You're going to keep me busy, but you know, that's our job. So, but thanks a lot. Anyway, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Senator. And we are.
Yes,
proposing to-
Senator
So
Modelo.
talking about leases, and one of my questions, or 2 of my questions would be, what is the status of the military leases, if you guys can answer that? What is the status on military leases?
Let me try to answer that. So the leases will expire in 2029. We have been having conversations with the Army, the Navy, not yet with the Air Force. The Army did come in for an informational briefing before the Board of Land and Natural Resources in November to talk about where they are in their process. What I've told all of the US DoD is that DLNR, we're the regulators. We're not advocating for leases. But they need to do the right environmental assessments or EISs. They also need to do community outreach. So they recognize that they are actually falling behind, that time is running out. But they have been keeping us informed of the status of their environmental process.
Some of the areas like Waikoloa, does that fall under you guys?
That they do, so a
Okay.
portion of it.
So I don't know if you guys ever seen the interview. I don't think the commander or the chief realized it, that he was, or what he was saying about the contamination of Waikoloa. And they asked him, as the lease expire and they decide that they're not gonna use, much of Puakaloa, they had asked about the uranium. And the question was, the answer was, they're gonna just leave it as like that. So we gotta change the way of our, people using our Aina, Akua, every place else. Because they come, they do their thing, and there's no cleanup or any plan. So if you guys are the overseer or the enforcer, whatever it is, you guys gotta put into the stipulations if these extension leases do happen, that they need to put it back how they found it, not how they think it should be. Because we can go on, and I wasn't born in 1942, but we get Pearl Harbor, all of these areas that is contaminating our ocean. Pearl Harbor right now is a big contamination in Never Beach. We get itchy in the water, the fuel is leaking, coming all of our areas. I asked them numerous of times, what is their cleanup plan? But these are the things, if these guys are considering this, and one of my colleagues, I'm not gonna say who, but he has a very good idea to put all the military leases under one and then figure out how we're gonna do fair market value. Because some of the land that they're acquiring, they're not using, especially in Waiwa. They get EVs on the property that they're not even using or maintaining, and they accidentally said they bombed it. So those are the things that we need to stipulate. If you guys are the ones that extending the lease or part of putting the provisions, that they need to give more access to practitioners to go in there and inspect. So one time they said you can come on a bus with 20 guys, then they said 5, then they said 3. So cultural practitioners need to be able to have access any time of the day to go check and monitor these EVs. And that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you guys if when these leases is going to be awarded to the military. Because I had put in my opposition for Puakaloa, because Puakaloa, they don't have to have the state site. They already get the site that they got from the ranch guys up there that they bought the other one. Puakaloa is in the middle of 2 of the areas. And even with the fire, I don't know if anybody went to look, even when it had the volcano eruption, right? They're not supposed to do anything. They went over there with the bulldozers and moved the line. So it's all illegal, but it's all documented. You can ask the guys in Hilo. But the reason why I'm asking this is because now DLNR is going, do they determine how, okay, now this is a different one now. So does DLNR has a determination of all the land value and leases?
For the military?
For everything, all the land and all the leases, the value of the land.
So there will be, so let me just point out, one of the options that the military is coming up with is the notion of a potential land exchange. Because right now, so for example, let's take Pohakuloa PTA. The military, DOD actually owns, or U.S. Department of Defense, Army, they actually probably own about 200,000 acres that they own in fee simple. The state lease land is about 10%, about 24,000. So it's a much smaller portion, but it is a critical portion. And Senator, you raised a really good point about what are we getting at the end of this? I don't know the answer to the uranium. I'm not familiar with that, but clearly there are Opala on there. And under recent Supreme Court decisions, we have the obligation to monitor their compliance with the lease conditions. So Land Division and State Historic Preservation Division, they go out there and they do inspect the sites for compliance. But on the other hand, we also need to consider what kind of lands are we going to get back if we just enter into a lease. So no decisions have been made. Those will ultimately be made by the Board of Land and Natural Resources. But they are considering as an alternative option, doing a land exchange, giving us, conveying to the state lands that the federal government may own. That will all require an appraisal so that what we are giving up, we know what the value is versus what we may be acquiring. But again, there's no decisions on what kind of lands, what will be the ultimate transaction, whether it's a lease or whether it's a land exchange, or whether there's no lease. Whether we we have to go through our own due diligence, requiring them to to provide environmental, including, cultural studies, all of those other requirements. But we have urged them that they need to start moving on this rather quickly, because 2029 is going to happen a lot sooner than they realize. So I think they understand the urgency.
Yeah, so Puakalo, we understand that military almost because they bought the one from what's the name of that ranch up there?
Parker Ranch.
Yeah, Parker Ranch. They bought plenty property from Parker Ranch. So majority of the facility is on the state property.
Right.
Adjacent property that they're contaminating or whatever is probably the one that they supposedly own. But my problem is the historicalness and the meaning of Puakalo between the two sacred mountains of between Mauna Kea and going forward. So that's the thing that we need to look at, because what they did to Makua, that should have never happened, and same with Kuho'olawe. But again, where is our value when it comes to these kinds of things? Because they cannot duplicate this anywhere else. Yes, they can, but they don't, because Hawaii is a very easy one to give them dollar for 65 years. And so that was the value that they bought the rent the place. Because when we went up there with Senator Kemp, I asked him, and that's a problem for me, because to me, what is the value? What is we worth as people of Hawaii when we letting our aina going to that? Back in the day, maybe we needed this because this is so-called war, but who are we at war now?
So you raise a good point. I think they
Sorry
understand
about that, Chair.
the dollar is no longer acceptable. I think they understand that.
Another thing we need to consider, I was on the county council way back when the uranium and the depleted uranium was actually became known to communities, but understanding that they're not dumping anymore opalas, as was mentioned, just to let you know, Senator, so you feel comfortable. Those are of old during the war, and unfortunately, it happens to be where we are today in this decade. And so with the depletion of the uranium areas have been part of it, have been cleared, but I understand it's their kuleana to see if there's any more within the area. But we have to consider also the benefit. You know that it takes pretty much an hour to get from Hilo to the end of DKI Highway, Highway 200. The benefits that we get from PTA, I think Dokir is also here. Most of the fires that have been reacted this past years and years prior, last year, the year before, the big fire at Hawaiian homelands along the slopes of Mauna Kea. Who was the one that came to battle the fires? Were the airplanes that the PTA brought in, the military and their dozers. But anytime there's fires on Saddle Road, I'll tell you, they're the first ones there, including the accidents that happens oftentimes. Now, what they have done, if you haven't been there for quite some time, you remember those old Quonset huts for you of old that used to be the housing for the trainees, but most of them are gone now. But I did tell them I wanted to be there to see when they take down the first one anyway, because that seemed to be an historical site at PTA, but most of that are gone. And there's all those new housing that they've put up as well, including the energy systems that they have that provided their own. So there's going to be some benefits to communities as well. But just to let you know that I'll tell you the times, including the revolt on 2019, when we had many thousands of people, they say, were up there. There were some incidences, health issues, and maybe Jason knows that. There was a child that got hurt, and guess who picked them up and took care of them was those personnel from PTA to make sure that they get to the base as well until the emergency equipments would come in. So there's the benefits that we have on a land area as big as Big Island. So, hopefully that we can look and make sure that all of the impacts as well that you have a big job ahead of you with dealing with the pros and the cons. But just to add that as well, it's a benefit to the community, and they're good stewards. I mean, if you have ever visited, and it's open to the public, they brought in personnel from University of Denver, Colorado, from Fort Collins to look at all the vegetations there. They have what do you call it? Those plants that have never ever been seen in Hawaii for years and years. And they have set up their own greenhouses. And if you see the plants there, that is unbelievable. They've become a harbor of plants that have been found to be very indigenous to the populations of old. And, you know, that's what they do up there. And they hire the people themselves. They bring in their own nurseries as well set up, but just to see the benefits. So with that said, I believe anyone else have other division people? I know all of you have been doing a very good job with what you do, many agencies as well, but it's not that you're not doing a good job because we haven't asked questions, but continue to the work you do. Senator Moriwaki.
I'd like to circle back. We did some site visits, WAM did, and there are a couple of issues. One was the transition plan. I know Laura was there, transition plan for Kalapapa. And what's happened, because you were going to bring all the groups together and with DHHL. So what's happening with that? What's the status?
So thank you for that question. So as DOH transitions out after the last patient passes. So I have reached out because the question is who's going to have jurisdiction. So we are looking at having conversations, including with the County of Maui, that maybe the County of Maui may want to take over Kalaupapa as being part of the County of Maui versus Kalawao. We're also talking to National Park Service because DLNR's position is, I think we feel comfortable having National Park Service continue to manage the lands that are under DLNR. Most of those are forestry lands. So we are working with them like on ungulates, fencing programs. The bulk of the property that's where the settlement is really under Department of Hawaiian Homelands. So there are regular meetings, part of the transition, to have all of the different departments working together on this transition. DLNR is working specifically with National Park Service on the memorial. So working with the Kalaupapa, the Ohana on the memorial site. So we have been having, I think the last meeting was a couple of months ago, actually probably before, right after the fires. So we have a schedule because the legislature had appropriated $5 million for that memorial. So we are working with the Ohana on establishing a regulatory process to get that, the memorial site and whatever needs to be done. So we are working on formalizing a transition plan for Kalaupapa.
So it includes like funding. Who's going to be sustaining this?
Yes, I mean, that's why for us,
HHL or deal.
right, we're comfortable with having National Park Service because they can help build capacity with their presence. Again, DHHL is also looking at whether they do housing development, but that's really better suited for them to respond to that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I got one more question. It's not a question, just how you're doing. Your building. Couple of years ago, couple of years ago, there was transitioning from all of the accounting people, personnel. DLNR used to have their own personnel in each agency. And then we consolidated them to one.
Yeah.
Okay, then we were looking at space when I walked through the building. Okay, so with that said, all those personnel from all the different offices ended up downstairs. Are you still downstairs? I
Yes,
called,
we're still
okay,
downstairs.
okay. Now, there was an issue with regards to the space next door to you, so you could keep your files for everybody else because you were growing.
Mhm.
Has that been done or completed, or is it still, DAG still moving people around?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's still on hold, is it on hold?
Yeah, we still don't have that space, so we're still
Can you pick
situated
the
in-
mic?
Oh,
Yeah.
So we're still situated in that one area. We were given ASO, we're talking about ASO. So
ASO,
ASO was
yes.
given a temporary use of that other room. But we can't move along because DAGs.
What about your files though? You had the files and there was that empty space.
Yes.
But it didn't make sense, Chair, just to bring another agency down where you have ASO like a kitty cat in most of the space. Why are you gonna put another office hiding in another corner when they could use the
No,
space?
so Senator, please be rest assured, it is not our call. I mean, we have asked DAGs. So we've asked DAGs for more space, even to give HR so they can get capacity
Yeah.
to do to build internal capacity to hire. So we have been working with DAGs.
Okay,
We're
all
not
right.
gonna throw anybody under the bus.
Now you give us more work. Vice Chair, can you help me make sure that DAGS takes care of making sure that our people who's working so hard, cramped up
Yeah.
together, because we make the changes. I mean, they're trying to consolidate and do the best they can, but without the
And
space.
Yeah, and just to add to that, ASO is working 5 days a week. We're not teleworking, so we're there every single day. So, the added space will help us a lot.
So
And
in that-
when we do our staffing, our recruitment, when we hire the next person, we're gonna be putting that person to that other room, but we're not ready because it's not.
So in that regard, for your teleworking, we've been asking all the agencies, DAGS is supposed to be looking at how we can bring people back on campus into your buildings. If in fact, you have space, but if you don't have space, that's another issue. But if you're looking at teleworking and how you might reconfigure your operations so that you have a conference table, you have hoteling, maybe looking at that and coming up with a plan so that we can in fact ask DAGs to help you folks find the space you need.
No, we
Yeah.
appreciate that. And, and like I said, we're not gonna throw anybody under the bus, but it would be helpful if the legislature, it was the legislature who asked us about that, because we have been asking DAGs about that space. I mean, for ASL to have some certainty as to that space, then they can hire and put someone there. So that's some of our dilemma. I know that DAGS is challenged with space as well, but so we're trying to work with them.
Okay, so we're asking you now. So if you can, and
Okay.
we'll have staff also in their follow-up questions, ask you, what is your space requirement? What are you doing? And then if you conclude the telework part, you are doing this,
Yeah.
but you also need space currently
Yes.
with employees who do come
We
in.
will respond to that. Thank you.
Yeah, but more so, I think it's the agency that's doing all of the work of all your agencies. Because I guess, I'm not sure.
Administrative support.
Yeah, the administrative support, but so with that said, I remember there were several more that was supposed to come down from the other agent. Are you complete with that?
We have transferred all the accountants. They are already located in ASO.
Oh,
But
okay.
then some of those positions are vacant now.
Okay, but
Are you
You're gonna fill
expecting
it?
to fill?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
we are in active recruitment.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right.
So we are actually, part of ASO's challenge too is to retain. So we would like to actually, increase some of the classifications to reflect the complexity of the work, but more importantly, to retain the good staff that they have. So, so.
Yeah,
just
and I
thinking-
think you've heard it before as well, because we've also encouraged all of those good workers that have retired ask them if they can take their vacation now and if they can come back and help out for the months that we're required by law. But I understand some are considering coming back to help the agencies. So you can have your open door too. Make sure that, you know, the agencies are also taking off the load and giving you more work, but they can do other stuff if you take their personnel down to complete the ASO office. But good luck. We'll help you along. Senator
Yeah, so-
Bella will give you a couple of
20 more
minutes.
minutes. Just talking about Kalapapa. I had other questions, but I'll just bring this up. So we went on a tour. It was the most breathtaking tour. I know Senator De La Cruz said, I always say that, but anyway, it was a great experience. But what Senator De La Cruz and Senator DeQuaite said to them, these buildings never fall apart overnight. Why none of them, the guys who called himself the mayor or the governor of the island, people that was maintaining or overseeing the island Department of Health, let's put it in perspective, never came to the legislation. And even when Senator DeQuaite said, now that we had Cully in the room, Director Cully brought in from Hawaiian Homes, Senator De La Cruz told them, we can't give Hawaiian Homes all these bus up places for them to spend the money to get up. Why don't you guys come to the ledge? Why don't you guys ask for money? Because they never did ask for maintenance or any kind of stuff on some of those homes that is historical and falling apart. You see, and then kind of getting back to the monument. So we went go visit the monument. I didn't go. I stayed by the church and whatnot. The only reason why I didn't go is because you guys got to really look who wants that monument. The old timers that was there, born, raised, family generations that live in Molokai don't want the monument because they don't want to have to remind the families of how they, when back then, nobody could want to be seen looking crippled and everything. Why would you want to put a picture of all of them and a monument on there? And then the area that they put it on has heavy rainfall and even landfall. So they want to put it in this mountain. The person, I'm not going to say the name, but he's a resident there, but he's not a born resident. He's a transporter resident to Molokai. Yeah. So having these guys to dictate the generations of families and granddaughters and great granddaughters who's saying that the Kuponos would never want that monument because it's going to put an eyesore on. Now, when we went there, first thing they told us, we put on our mask. Don't take any pictures. But then we're going to put a picture of them on a monument. See what I'm saying? So they don't want to be seen that way. They want to be remembered of the person and not the disfigurement. So that's why please really investigate that before we go, because it was really shocking to me that they was thrown off the boat and they had to swim to the island. And the person I'm talking about, her mother was the firstborn from that generation. She's the great granddaughter of the people there. They don't want it. They do great job. Like you said, the Rangers do a great job, but we need to be better stewards on how the Department of Health did not relate to the Senate or the legislation on the falling apart of the building. Now, again, we want to give Hawaiian Homes something that, again, will cost money to fix before we could even transfer to doing anything else on the island. But if you can just look into that going forward, especially with the monument, because legislatively, I know Senator De La Cruz and Lynn is going to look into something about some of the houses that can be fixed, try to figure that out. But that place was just unbelievable. You can feel the mono on that island, man. It's unbelievable. So please look into that because that was what told to me on sidebar that why would we want that when the ones that passed away never wanted something like that.
I appreciate that sentiment. My great-great-grandfather died on Kalapa. And you're right, that generation, people were shamed.
Yeah,
They were sad.
that's right.
Your family was sad.
Yes.
So we have raised both National Park Service and DLNR because those comments, like as you share, has come back to us about does this ohana actually represent the interests of those families. So we're trying not to interject our,
Yes.
other than what we hear, but we are holding that ohana, the kalapapa, ohana that say they represent the families to indeed do community engagement. So that is one of the conditions of the release of the funds that the state appropriated 5 million towards the monument.
Yes.
Is you have to demonstrate there's community engagement, and it reflects the sentiment of those family members as well as topside on Molokai. So we totally recognize and appreciate that we have to make sure that we're doing this right and that the families are actually participating in those decisions. And I don't know what the answer is other than we place that burden on them to have to do that.
Yeah.
We also know that there are National Park Service. This is probably not one of the parks that they've invested a lot of money in. So, but again, for us, DLNR, we are comfortable having them to continue to steward those lands that they are helping co-manage with us. DHHL may have a different view, so I will leave the DHHL to represent what their interests are. But as we understand that they are considering, do they use some of that land that's currently where the settlement is for housing for DHHL residents? So again, a lot of this discussion is being had with this transition team to make sure that those discussions are being had and fully vetted out, and not decisions aren't being made in isolation.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Closing. You see, we have good people here.
You do?
No, because they all love this department, this agency. Senator Kanuha, followed by and closing by Senator Hashimoto, who we welcome here in the Senate.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, I'm not going to bring up, Kahalu surf schools or mentoring, diving or Kealaki Kua Bay master plan or, the recreation or the fish aquarium trade. But I did have a couple of questions on some of the contracts that you guys had on table 14. So I don't know what page it is on your sheet, but on mine it's 92 or page 60. It's just some clarification. Table 14.
Okay.
Well, it's on my computer 92, but page 60 for this.
All right, and the specific.
The specific one was LNR 172 at the very bottom. Provide financial assistance to eligible landowners who voluntarily do what?
This is who's division? Who's that? LNR?
LNR 172.
What's the total amount?
It's a $72,000 contract. Oh, sorry, $98,000 contract.
Oh, the period, I see. Hopu Nui Farms. This is an LNR 172, David?
It just didn't have a.
Missing words.
It's
Who
forestry.
voluntarily steward the lands? I don't know. That's what's missing.
Provide money that's competitive process for applying for private forest stewardship programs.
And this happens yearly?
It's an annual appropriation, and we put out a certain amount of money every year. This is private landowners, and they apply. There's a committee that evaluates the different proposals and picks different ones. So,
Yeah, no, I just wanted to see what the rest of the words were on that one.
Yeah, we got that.
That's it.
No, just one last one on page 68. The Deepwater Well Monitoring Program in West Hawaii. It is, LNR 404.
For the 1.5 million?
Yeah, is that CRM?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, so is there any updates about that, or what exactly does that do?
That's the deep monitoring.
Deep monitoring well West Hawaii.
Oh, that's is that the 200,000?
200,000.
200,000.
68 is 1.5 million.
Did you say decommissioning?
No, deep monitor well.
Well,
Well,
Deep.
Wow.
It says
Um,
funding with.
It's an ongoing contract until
Akinaka and Associates.
Akinaka and Associates,
Yeah.
200,000.
Yeah, that's 200,000.
Carly,
Yeah.
is that the one going down Kauai High Road?
No, the deep water well that was selected was gonna be not the one at the Kalamata property.
Yeah.
It was.
No, but the other one across that's now under you folks.
Yeah, it's gonna be at the Hapuna State
Yeah,
Park.
Oh.
That's where they're siting that well, with that.
yeah, I think it was somewhere along that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
you know we need more water.
exactly. Exactly. Okay. Senator
I'm
Troy,
Thank
Can
you.
I just, since he's here, because
Sewer
no, yeah,
DP.
for deep
or
water,
Carly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading that you say that you have to have many more wells and you're not getting it because we don't give you enough match to be able to get more wells drilled. So if we need it, do you have a plan on which ones we actually need if we want to drill for water? And what is the cost if we're trying to get, if we give the match, you can get federal money?
We're talking about deep monitor wells
Yeah,
or
yeah, deep monitoring wells.
so the deep monitor wells are our CIP projects. We don't have any federal matches for that.
Oh, so what is the UPS, geological service, USGS?
Yeah, so that one is our part of our cooperative monitoring program that we do annually with the US Geological Survey. For that one, we do have a handful of wells that USGS monitors for us. But the majority of the work is for stream gauging, and the gauging, the federal match has not grown with the costs. And so we are, when I first started working over 20 years ago, it was close to 50-50, but currently we put up about 80% of the agreement costs.
And to add USGS wells, we located quite a bit up in North Kohala, and Cardi Chang engineers know about it. We took one, a particular one at no cost if you use USGS wells, then if it's a private development, they'll sell it to you. But because of what we're doing at North Kohala, creating new ag lots, we were able to find it we were lucky because it was on DOE lands, state lands. But there's a lot that USGS and the partnership that the divisions have is just overwhelming. We should appreciate that they find water, but the use of the waters that we need in that district in, like I say, West Hawaii is forestry, up on the mountain. I mean, on the upper roads going into Kona, where we really need at least some water cells. And we've been trying to find monies for that area as well. No more USGS wells up there,
It says that we
unfortunately.
need 20 more. And so I'm just thinking, we don't have water, so what are we doing
And I
to
think
be
that's
more
statewide for the
proactive?
20 more. It's
Yeah.
pretty much areas that have no access to water. But Senator Hashimoto.
Yes, we're going to pivot a little bit.
Okay.
So Chair Chang, thank you for being here. I want to go to page 17, which is table 4. And I guess this is more of a strategy question because I think you were the one that requested it, a lot for the fire response positions. Obviously, it's a very tough budget year, and it's not in the final governor's budget, or much of it isn't there. So I think, what is the plan? Because you couldn't get much of what you needed. Is there enough there, or what is the ask that will allow you to do what you need to do?
There will never be enough, obviously, but we are trying to utilize the resources that we do have. Do you have a specific, you're looking at page 17, is there a specific?
Table 4, well, you asked for 22 permanent positions, and then it looks like in governor's decision, you got nothing.
Yeah, so the positions, priority wise, we needed the equipment more, so that we could have used the positions, but the governor did provide 20 positions to Hawai'i.
Okay, so it's someplace
Yeah,
else.
so David, those aren't the ones that you missed. those aren't the ones we asked for, but the priority on our budget, while we wanted the 20 positions, it was from funding wise, it was more to get the equipment and the capacity for fire suppression. So the positions would have been very helpful, but we think that we can manage with the ones that we've got, so long as we have the resources, like the equipment, we've got a lot of outdated equipment. So when we had to pick and choose which ones were gonna be our priority, when we had to do an appeal to the governor's budget, it was the $7 million for the fire suppression equipment and those resources, watershed protection. So we will do what we can with the positions that we have. Is that your David? That is.
Okay, well, I think the bottom line is do you feel that's appropriate, right? Because I think, I think it's top of mind for everyone. So if you think equipment is fine, that's great. It's just you got to be able to execute at that point, right? And when people say, "Oh, are we doing enough?" and you say, "Oh, we only give you the equipment and you needed more," right? I think we just got to be able to justify that.
I mean, if you ask me, do I want the 20 positions? Yes. But I also recognize that if we have to prioritize equipment versus positions, we wanted the equipment more. But do we want the positions? Yes.
Okay, I think it's something that we have to work towards. I think it's probably something that we're going to be talking about over the next year, I would assume, and to making sure that you get a handle as we head into probably the next summer season as it gets dry, make sure we have all the fire breaks and whatnot. So hopefully we can continue the discussion and we'll see how we progress, I suppose, in the next year.
And we recognize under the National Weather Service, we're going to go into, it's going to get drier with El Nino.
Right.
So we are very concerned about the potentials for fire. Where we have diminished rain, it makes the vegetation even more problematic. So yes, we could use all of the resources that are available as well as the additional positions.
Great, thank you, Chair.
Continued conversation.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, we hope to get you all out to finish your half an hour work in your office, which I'm sure it's not going to be half an hour. One last thing.
Yes.
What's the timeline for the department to apply for the FEMA reimbursables expenditures? The Maui, you have a timeline, right? Wasn't there
Well, we're working with Haima
Yeah.
on the reimbursement. I don't know if we have a clear timeline. Is it just ongoing or did Haima give us a timeline?
You don't know, can you get?
Yeah, we can get back with you. We can take a
Get
look
back
at
to
that.
us. Okay,
It's an
all
ongoing
right.
process.
Okay, thank you, folks. Happy New
One more
Year.
thing. I want to just
Okay.
follow on. Thank you, everybody. But one last thing on the invasives, the combating invasives, whether we have a briefing or you send in a report
Yes.
up with DOA and the other agencies that you're working.
So what we'll do is we'll provide you material or briefings, and if you want to have an informational briefing after
Yeah,
that, you can let
yeah,
us know.
okay, great, great.
So we'll provide you some briefings.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Meeting.
Okay, thank
Meeting is adjourned.
Yep, thanks, folks.
Thank you very much. So,
Oh, yeah, it's-
are you-